You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national insurance columnist and financial color commentator. And today and all this week, we're talking about our series, Building Your Business and Protecting Your Practice. And today, we're talking about your ID in the marketplace with attorney David F. Sterling.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, and with me today is David F. Sterling. We're broadcasting live from Fountain Hills, Arizona to a nationwide audience of financial advisors. And I have to say, David, welcome to our show again, day 2 with David Sterling.
Thanks, Steve.
We have so much
fun
to cover today, and you know what? We're talking about our ID in the marketplace. Now, I have to pontificate a bit here for a moment. When I came in here, life insurance agents, I came into the business 30 years ago, and life insurance agents were the second lowest form of vocational life next to a used car salesman. When I came in, I was wondering, why do we have so much negativity? And that was back in the day. When I'm talking about bringing it up to current time. Then we were told if we got our security licenses and we became registered investment advisors and we had all this, we could now call ourselves consultants. We could call ourselves advisors. We could go ahead and move up the food chain, and actually we were actually using words like we are now the quarterback of our clients' concerns. And then we migrated to we are now the liaison for all their concerns with all their other financial, whether it's CPA, accountant, the enrolled agents of the IRS, and then we gravitated and finally slapped on the name fiduciary. Okay, this is what we did. Okay, now we're talking about our ID because it matters. It may matter in non-binding arbitration. It may matter in court. I need to know, how am I holding myself out in the marketplace? And I want to talk about this because I know you have a unique view on this, and I think this is where we need to go.
Thank you, Steve. I got to tell you, this is a topic of the day. For the very simple reason that as you describe that progression, I'm sitting here, and did at any point someone flash you that warning, we're going to pull the rug out from under you?
No.
And you got to tell me right now if the rug hasn't been pulled.
Yeah, and well, actually, I don't want to get too negative on the show today, but I have to say, when I'm looking at obligations by carriers back to the field force, I just don't see them protecting us, that's for sure.
Yeah, and let's kind of channel through this a little bit because I think that's a great point. Who's got our back?
Right, exactly.
I like to assume no one. I like to approach it that way. We're going to have our back. That is what we're going to do. Here's what I mean. I had occasion to speak to a prosecutor. I know this may be part of the agenda. I'll just mention it briefly, the Glenn Isham case. Part of what surrounded the presentation of evidence was the fact of commissions. I want to say this very clear. Commissions are not evil. How sad that by the mere presence of a commission, that assumptions are made about conduct and character. That's the point we've reached. No question about it.
When I think, and we're going to be talking about this at the end of this week, we're going to bring up this whole Glenn Isham thing. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the problems and some of the issues that came out of it. I have to say, though, when I'm looking at identification, I'm trying to hold myself out. I have a billboard persona, and I'm trying to say, what should that be? Now, and by the way, remember, I have two populations represented on the show. FINRA licensed registered reps and life and annuity only licensed agents. So to me, I got two people to talk to today. Right. And how do we hold ourselves out and not put ourselves in a position where we could actually be giving an expectation to the client that could be something we never intended to give?
Here's a practical point to that. And this is a starting point, and it would be fun to engage in this as a project. But it's actually to look at statutorily how the different obligations are defined, regulatory-wise, legislative-wise. Why do I want to do that? Because I just don't want to have an idea of how do I want to promote myself and where might I get in trouble by that process. I also want to have a distinct idea about how others are viewing me. That's just a starting point. So let's have a clear crystal ball idea of exactly what is defined by behavior and conduct. What are the implications of that? Fine. I don't want to beat that to death. Now the next step is that certainly there is an element of branding involved in how we present ourselves to the public. Interesting enough, and it goes back to the point, we need to do a better job, we can do a better job of what we represent. I'm talking about the product salesperson. I get it that it can feel negative, let's say, put it that way, to call yourself a salesperson. You are much more than that because of the deliverables, that you're actually presenting to the client. What I'm talking about here, though, is to take control over that domain. You know and I know that if I hold myself out as an advisor, just that simple word, as I think you reflected on, changes the character of expectation in my relationship to the client. But it also changes the character of expectation if I am looking to file a complaint or bring charges. Because if I go to the file and I see evidence that you are holding yourself out as having a certain level of expertise, that in your dialogue workings with the client you're addressing certain topics, be very careful about how far you stray.
Well, now I noticed that you kind of set this up in kind of a yin and yang approach. You said advisors have clients, salespeople have customers. Now talk a little about that, because that was kind of a new, kind of a new species for me.
As you know, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to come up with.
Right.
But that one resonates well, because I think the challenge is simply this: as a salesperson, you are more involved in a transaction. By definition, that transaction is, here is what I can offer as a solution client, do you buy it? I understand exactly what I'm buying, and it's mine to do with as I deem appropriate. Agent, I am not putting on you the expectation for you to run my daily life and how I live with that product I bought.
Well, we come back after the break. We're going to talk more about, are you a customer serving or a client serving producer?
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Companies in our business are always touting service, products, and underwriting. And we do that too. But here's the difference. Now enter the world of the elite producer with a value package that cuts us out of the pack. A BD that approves social media marketing of non-FINRA products and doesn't take an override. With the best competition desk in the industry, and for our loyal producers, a true group health plan. No one offers that. Brokers Alliance does.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. I'm with David F. Sterling. We're talking about, are you an advisor or are you a salesperson? Do you have clients or do you have customers? Is it okay to just be transaction oriented, or do I have to do a complete plan? I mean, those are the things that I always struggle with, and we have such a diverse population watching this show. And I want you to think about, when we're done today with this show in about 7-8 minutes of this segment, I want you to say, gee, Steve, you're asking us to return to our original state of being a salesperson. I think I am. I think I am.
And I think you're right. To this point, unfortunately, what I think we are able to do as salespeople, and I'm just going to lay it out like that, is we have the opportunity now, part of the client engagement process, part of how we really define the deliverables, the attributes, the benefits that are being provided, but at the same time recognizing that others are monitoring our behavior and they're critiquing it. That's what it means to be in the crosshairs. Now, what I am suggesting is that, as you say, return to the days of being the salesperson. I say, let's just tweak that definition a little bit. Let's redefine for the marketplace what it is that we're selling, and let's cast off that label. Because out there, I'm basically saying that through a little bit of creativity, a little hard work, you can be a salesperson and be every bit as professional as Joe Lawyer, Joe CPA.
Well, I think we feel the pressure of having the word advisor on we're the quarterback of our clients' financial concerns. And I would like to relieve us of those duties, of that kind of moniker around our neck, because I think it's become an albatross. It is no longer it's not a badge of courage, and it doesn't get me in the door any better. I'd rather just maybe simplify my life and try to match up to your expectations.
Let me throw this out to you, and you're probably more the expert on this than I certainly am, and it's simply this point. But interesting enough, you are a consultant. You are an advisor on what you are bringing to benefit the client and his or her family. Now, that is taking the words of the marketplace and saying, yeah, I'm going to use those words, but I'm going to shape it around what I do and what I deliver. I'm going to define what my practice looks like. And of course, I think as you suggested, and I hate to go back to the idea of rules of engagement, it all starts at that point. But let's not minimize the importance of what we're selling. Because when we start throwing the word salesperson out there, like it or not, all the assumptions start flowing.
Right.
And it's just not true.
Well, we have to figure out a way to use good language to define it. And I love the rules of engagement. I think that really can define the expectation of the client as well as our expectation. And I think for a lot of our baby boomer producers especially, who've been in this business 20 plus years, we've been reconfigured in our ID on the marketplace so many times over my last 30 years especially, that we're like, we don't even know who we are anymore. And if we don't define ourselves, the regulatory agencies are going to do it for us.
And they've already done it.
And I've already seen it. That's why I was kind of asking you to touch on that. Do you think regulation has already carved out the titles that we hold? Have they really done that?
In many ways, yes. And it's not just a matter of what's down on paper. Interesting, if you look at all the statutes that have been passed in the states regarding annuity transactions, and you go through that litany of things. Now, I hate to say it, there are times if I'm involved in a complaint where I look at some of the terminology, all other elements surrounding the client's life. Oh, so basically, as a suitability sales transaction, you're pushing me into a zone that may have those implications you're speaking of exactly, that I don't want to go into. And that is a really critical point. Yes, they've done it. Well, you know what frightens me more? What frightens me more, and I told you about this, I attended a program sponsored by the State Attorney General's Office for the state of Florida. Basically, I've had my wrist slapped before, it was how to take down the insurance agent. A big segment of
this is state-sponsored.
State-sponsored.
Unbelievable.
And it was how to. It was a 3-day intensive workshop. I heard more misinformation about annuities, about life insurance, about long-term care than you can imagine. And yes, I spoke, and yes, I was asked to cool my jets. The reality is, it's time to charge a hill.
Well, I'm wondering now, if I want to go to the next level up, I really want to be able to be a product purveyor. I know my area, where my niche is, and I want to be able to produce and talk about it and communicate it with my client. And I need to format in my rules of engagement my objectives and what I'm going to quarantine my area that I want to discuss. That's what I keep seeing you talk about.
That's it.
You know, framing your practice.
That is great what you just said, quarantining, because I think what we can do for the agents, what we can do for the producers, is certainly do exactly that. You know, help guide them through that process of what those specifics are that they are trying to accomplish in that client engagement, while concurrently giving them those permissible boundaries to have dialogue about other matters. For instance, the fixed insurance sales transaction. There is nothing wrong with stepping outside and having generalized discussions about the markets. And yet you would think that's not the case.
Well, you know, we're going to talk about all this tomorrow, and we have broker dealers going after non-FINRA agents, because I just brought up the S&P in a discussion of an index. So when we get in this tomorrow, you won't want to miss the show, because I think this is going to be the actual fulcrum point of everything we're talking about. When you watch this show and all our shows, you can hop out to www.brokersalliance.com. And this is our show today, Get in the Zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
The Biz is brought to you by Brokers Alliance, a national leader in insurance products, support services, and educational workshops. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.